There are many ways to prepare for and deliver a talk, and it's important to find the one that's right for you. One of the first key decisions you need to make, and ideally you'll make it early on in your talk preparation, is whether you will A. Write out the talk in full as a complete script, to be read, memorized, or a combination of the two, or B. Have a clearly worked out structure and speak in the moment to each of your points. There are powerful arguments in favor of each strategy. The huge advantage of going the scripted route is that you can make the best possible use of your available time. If there are tricky explanations involved or important steps in your persuasion process, it may be essential for you to get every word down and tweak every sentence and paragraph to perfection. Scripting also has the advantage that drafts of the talk can be shared ahead of time. We love it when speakers send us a draft a couple of months ahead of the conference. That allows us time to give feedback on which elements might be cut and which might need further explanation. But the big drawback of a script is that unless you deliver it in the right way, the talk may not feel fresh. Being read to and being spoken to are two very different experiences. In general, and there are exceptions, audiences respond far more powerfully to the latter. This is something of a puzzle. If they're the same words and everyone present knows they were written by the speaker, why should we care how they are delivered to us? It may be because human-to-human communication is a dynamic process unfolding in real time. You say something, I look at your eyes and make all manner of unconscious judgments. Is this something you really mean? Are you passionate about it? Are you committed to it? As a listener, until I know these things, it's too risky to open up my mind to you. That means there's huge power to watching someone think out loud in the moment. We can sense your conviction, and we get to be part of the excitement of seeing a big idea identified, battled with, and finally shaken into shape. By contrast, when the words are read, they may feel impersonal and distanced. It's a bit like watching a sports event on DVR. The game has already been won or lost. Even when we don't know the outcome, we don't care quite as much. That's how read talks can sound. So if you go the script route, you have three main strategies open to you. 1. Know the talk so well that it doesn't for a moment sound scripted. More on this shortly. 2. Refer to the script either from a lectern, preferably not one that blocks out your whole body, or possibly from a screen or confidence monitor, but compensate by looking up during each sentence to make eye contact with the audience. You may have the entire thing there in front of you, but it's important that you feel as if you're in speaking mode, not reading mode. The audience can tell the difference. It's all about giving meaning to the words as you speak as naturally and passionately as you can. It's about eye contact and smiles or other facial expressions. It's about being familiar enough with the script that you're really just glancing down once every sentence or two. 3. Condense the script to bullet points and plan to express each point in your own language in the moment. For the majority of speakers, the most reliable way to say what you really want to say in the most powerful way is to first script it out and get to know it so that it's part of you. But that is hard work. Imagine you get to observe a friend who, over the course of a week or so, tries to memorize his talk. Let's say that you ask him every day to give the best version of the talk that he can without using notes. You would notice something odd. Early on in the process, he would be quite convincing, if a little unstructured. He doesn't actually know any of the talk by heart yet, so he simply does his best to give you the information he knows in approximately the order he's planned. But a few days into the process, you notice a change. He has reached the point where he knows quite a bit of the talk by heart, and so those parts come out in eloquent paragraphs. But you don't feel the same original liveliness from them. You feel his stress. You hear words like, let's see, just a minute, let me start that again. Or you simply hear those paragraphs rattled off a little robotically. Those clues are giveaways that the talk is being recited rather than spoken with meaning. I call this phase of preparation the uncanny valley. It's a term borrowed from a phenomenon in computer animation where the technology of animating human-like characters is super close to seeming real, but is not quite there. The effect is creepy, worse than if the animator had steered clear of realism altogether. If your speaker friend comes to the stage in this mode, his talk will probably fail. He'd do better to forget about delivering a scripted talk and instead write down 7 bullet points and speak a bit about each of them. Or take the script with him to the stage. But if he persists in the memorization process, by the 6th or 7th day, you will notice a thrilling change. Suddenly, the speaker really knows the talk. He knows it so well that recalling it is a snap. Suddenly your friend can use his conscious attention to focus on the meaning of the words once again. So what I'd say to speakers planning to memorize their talks is this: that's great. You're giving yourself the best chance for a huge hit, but it is absolutely essential that you take yourself through Uncanny Valley and don't get stuck there. If you're not willing to commit to do that, do not memorize. So that's the key. Don't think of it as reciting the talk. You're supposed to live it, embody it. Your sole goal is to get to the point where remembering the words is no longer an effort, and you can use your stage time to impart passion and meaning to the audience. It must come across as if you were sharing these ideas for the first time. One other key question for scripted talks is what type of language you should use, spoken language or written language. The language we use in everyday speech is quite different from the language writers use, more direct, less lyrical. The advice of most speaking coaches is to stick rigidly to spoken language. That way it can be spoken from the heart, in the moment. It is, after all, a talk, not a write. Harvard professor Dan Gilbert advises his students to speak their talks into a recorder first, then transcribe them and use that as the initial draft of their talk. Why? Because, he told me, when people write, they tend to use words, phrases, sentence structures, and cadences that no one uses in natural speech. So when you start with written text and then try to adapt it for performance, you are basically trying to turn one form of communication into another, and odds are that your alchemy will fail. But once again, it's a mistake to be too rigid about this. Great writers can make a different type of talk, one in which the elegant, pre-written language is the whole point. Take a look at this paragraph from a memorable talk at TED 2014 by Andrew Solomon. We don't seek the painful experiences that hew our identities, but we seek our identities in the wake of painful experiences. We cannot bear a pointless torment, but we can endure great pain if we believe that it's purposeful. Ease makes less of an impression on us than struggle. We could have been ourselves without our delights, but not without the misfortunes that drive our search for meaning. Solomon is an extraordinary writer, and it shows. This is language that would naturally appear in a book or magazine feature, not language that you would naturally use in a one-to-one conversation with a friend at a bar. The clues are in the language's lyricism, words like hew and torment. This is a powerful piece of writing, and it's meant to be heard that way. Even though he was speaking from notes, the lyrical power of the language made us feel we were in the hands of a master craftsman. We wanted the talk to have been pre-written. Talks like Andrew's can be read. Perhaps they should be read. But if you go this route, even if you're a truly great writer, do your audience the honor of knowing your script so well that you can still give a sense of feeling it in the moment. Mean every sentence. Look up as often as you can and make eye contact. And perhaps, if you want to add a moment of powerful impact toward the end, abandon your script before the last page and speak the conclusion directly from the heart. Unscripted talks. This term covers a large landscape, from impromptu ad-libbing to intricately prepared and structured talks accompanied by rich visuals. What they all have in common is that in the moment of delivery, you are not trying to recall a specific pre-written sentence. Instead, you are thinking about the subject matter and looking for the best words to convey the point at hand. At most, you have a set of notes to guide you through the main elements of the talk. There's a lot to be said for going unscripted. It can sound fresh, alive, real, like you are thinking out loud. If this is your most comfortable speaking style, and if you are covering material that is very familiar to you, this may be your best choice. But it is important to distinguish unscripted from unprepared. In an important talk, there's no excuse for the latter. Many unscripted talks, alas, result in half-baked explanations, non sequiturs, key elements missed, and rambling overruns. So how do you prepare for an unscripted talk? A lot will depend on what type of journey you plan to take the audience on. A talk built around a single story will be a lot easier than one where you're trying to construct a complex explanation or a nuanced argument. But the key to the process is to go back to the metaphor of the journey and ask yourself what each step of the journey looks like. At a minimum, a label for each step can be your set of bullet points or mental notes. Use the words that will trigger a key sentence or a phrase that launches the next step in your talk. TED speakers have widely different opinions, by the way, on whether a memorized script or a prepared talk in the moment is the better way to go. Pam Meyer told me the reason to script a talk is so that you can make sure every sentence counts. You know how when you give a talk, you like certain parts more than others? You have to love every single sentence. You actually have to go through your script and your slides and ask the question, is this essential to advancing my message? And is this interesting, really interesting? Do I love saying this line? And put every single sentence and slide through the test. If anything lands in the maybe pile, it's out. Salman Khan has a different stance. Believing what you're saying in real time has a much larger impact than saying the exact right words. I personally tend to list out bullet points of what I want to talk about, and then try communicating those ideas in my natural language as if I'm talking to friends at a dinner table. The key is to keep your mind focused on the ideas and let the words fall out. The audience knows when you're thinking about what you're saying versus when you have just memorized a script. One of the world's most talented speakers, Sir Ken Robinson, has a different stance. He told me that several parts of his blockbuster TED Talk on creativity were improvised in the moment. People should do whatever makes them comfortable on stage and helps them to relax. If memorizing works, they should do that. It doesn't for me. One of my priorities in giving a talk is to establish a personal relationship with the audience, and to do that, I want room to improvise. Whether it's 10 people or 10,000, a seminar or a rally, I feel it's essential to talk with people, not at them, and to be authentic in doing it. I do plan talks carefully, however. When I walk on stage, I always know what I want to have said before I walk off again. Here's the bottom line. The majority of TED speakers do, in fact, script their whole talk and memorize it, and they do their best to avoid letting it sound memorized. If you have time to do that, it probably gives you your best shot at encapsulating all you want to say and avoiding the usual traps of a memorized talk. But if you don't have the time to truly memorize until the talk is second nature, or if you already know that's just not how you give a great talk, please don't go this route. The key is to find the mode you can feel confident about and commit to it. If that choice seems a little stressful, here's some good news. As you start to rehearse, the difference between the two modes starts to fade. The starting points may be different, but in both cases, you end up with a talk that is meticulously prepared and passionately delivered.